Hello, my name is Stuart Kightley and I'm a partner in Osborne's Personal Injury Department. I specialise in head injury claims, and I just want to talk for a few minutes about maybe some key elements to head injury claims and the role that a lawyer plays to hopefully give you some idea of the way these cases work and how we can help. So three themes really: recognition, rehabilitation and resolution. Starting with recognition, the vital thing first of all is to find out whether or not there is a head injury claim and how serious it is. Now, it might seem obvious, and it often is in the more serious claims, where there are the cardinal signs. There's perhaps a skull fracture, there's depressed consciousness, even coma, there's an abnormal brain scan. In those cases, the hospital normally pick things up pretty quickly and put in proper treatment and start to move towards rehabilitation. It's not as clear often in multiple injury cases where the head injury might be missed. So, by way of an example, there's a case I settled recently where the claimant suffered multiple serious orthopaedic injuries and facial and dental injuries as well. Now, they were addressed and the claimant was transferred from one hospital to another, but it was kind of lost in the process that although he hadn't suffered a fractured skull, he'd broken bones in his face and there was depressed consciousness initially. He was agitated in hospital, he was confused, those sorts of things. And then he was discharged without any follow-up, and it only became apparent talking to him and his friends and his family that there were issues with memory, concentration, fatigue, those sorts of things, depression. So as a result, we got him assessed by private medical experts, psychologists, neurologists and psychiatrists. And they concluded, more importantly, the defendant's experts agreed that he had suffered a significant head injury, and so we were able to put in place some rehabilitation and some compensation for him for that. So multiple injuries, there's a possibility of the head injury being missed. In a whole other level of cases, often less serious but still significant, are the subtle head injuries where the injured person may have some of those, or maybe just one of those cardinal signs, but no scan at hospital and they're discharged home without even being admitted. And in those cases, it's very important for the lawyer, because it might not become apparent otherwise, to pick up, by speaking to the injured person, their family and friends, pick up what symptoms there have been since the accident and whether they might be down to a head injury. There might be altered personality, psychological, psychiatric issues going on, affected memory, concentration, fatigue, those sorts of things as well. So it's important that we try and pick up those things early on, even if the hospital haven't done so. And the second issue is key, it's rehabilitation. Now, this is where the lawyer can really earn his spurs, because it's kind of universally accepted that the sooner a rehabilitation package is put in place, the better the long-term outcome. So what we try and do is get in a specialist right at the start of the case to assess the injured person and what their needs are. And usually these days we get buy-in on that from the insurance company who agree to fund it. So the sort of things we're talking about are recommendations for a case manager to get in place. That person does the job of coordinating everything else. When you've suffered a head injury, it's bad enough living your day-to-day life. You don't want to be having to deal with your own investigations, your own rehabilitation and those sorts of things. And the other things that will then be put in place might be domestic assistance, a support worker, and lots of therapies are often necessary, such as physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy and those sorts of things. So if those things are put in place fairly early on, then even in the very serious cases where there's not perhaps a great deal of improvement in the organic brain injury, the person can be rehabilitated to cope as well as possible and to return as far as possible to the life they had before. Finally, I want to talk about resolution, because ultimately the job of the case is to resolve it and get compensation for the injured person to put them back on track and compensate them for the losses they've suffered and will suffer in the future. Now, we have to prove fault on the other party's part. That's the way these cases work. So what we'll be doing as lawyers in the background is getting the evidence, issuing court proceedings if necessary, to take the matter to a trial if the defendants don't back down in order to establish liability. Then once the medical expert evidence is obtained and we can value the claim, then we look to settle it. And often these days we do that in an approach that doesn't involve a judge, because that often works best. So we have settlement meetings where the case can be resolved on a full and final basis and sorted out so that the injured person can finally move on with their lives. So the real issues for me, and where a lawyer can add value in these cases, is in terms of maximum rehabilitation and maximum compensation. If I can help with any further questions you might have, please feel free to ring me personally, to email me or anybody else in the team on the telephone number or email on our website.